It's so good to see you again. My name is Stephanie Koslowski, and I'm one of the regional directors at PAX, Program of Academic Exchange. I would like to introduce my husband, Jeff Koslowski. If you remember from our last presentation, he is an 11th grade history teacher, and he teaches here in Greenfield Village. You may be able to see his classrooms just over my shoulder here. I hope you really enjoy our virtual tour of Greenfield Village in Dearborn, Michigan.
Hello again, everybody. I'm Jeff Koslowski, teacher here at Henry Ford Academy. Now, the skies are blue, the sun is out, the birds are chirping, and that means it's opening weekend here at Greenfield Village. Now, the last time we were together, we were inside the museum where we saw lots of things in our indoor facility. And now, we're going to go outside and see more than 300 years worth of American history. We're starting off here at the Cotswold Cottage, starting off in England, way back in the 1600s. And from here we're going to progress out and see why Henry Ford collected buildings from all across the country and all across the world to help tell the story of how the average everyday American lived, worked, and played. Come join me, will you? Now, Henry Ford did not intend people to live here at Greenfield Village permanently, but he did want you to feel like this was truly an American town. So how do you build an American town from the ground up? Well, you start with the place of worship. Behind me is the Martha Mary Chapel, named after Henry Ford's mother-in-law and his mother. Religious places are very important in American society, just like they were since Americans began arriving here in the 1600s. The religious center would often be the first building that was built, and it would also probably be the tallest one as well, which the Martha Mary Chapel is. Now today, you can get married here, although the waiting list is a little bit long, but in the 1920s, when the chapel was first built, children would actually start their school day right behind me. This was a place to not only get lessons that Henry Ford felt were important, but it was also a place to practice your public speaking, as every student had to at some point lead the entire school in some form of service. Now, what would you do when it came to going to school? How would you get there? How important was it? Would your parents even let you do it? Those are some of the big questions that in 1861, students at this very school had to answer. This is the Scotch Settlement School. Now, Scotch comes from the name of the immigrant group, the Scottish, that are finding their way to what we would consider today Dearborn, Michigan. Now, this very school, Henry Ford himself actually attended class from the age of 6 until about the age of 9 or 10. He really enjoyed his time here and enjoyed his McGuffey eclectic readers, which he felt taught good, important moral lessons. Now, Henry Ford's seat in the back row on the left, and you can tell because if you look really closely, you can see the initials HF still carved into that desk, still to this very day. So many new immigrants coming to the United States, there became a major question about what is the American language actually going to be? With immigrants from England and France and Germany, Native Americans, people from Asia, what was the American language? It was going to be a mix of all of them. So how do we unify it? How do we make an American language defined so we don't have multiple spellings of the same words? Well, that's where Noah Webster would come in. In this house, he created his first dictionary back in the 1820s. There he meant to unify lots of words that through different languages and through different interpretations would all become one singular form of spelling. That language in turn would go into print, and in turn would be spread throughout the United States so that somebody in California could have the exact same spelling of a word from the same people from New York. We've talked a lot about American history so far, but what about the science? Science was a very important part of Henry Ford's life. In fact, the only patent that Henry Ford actually has is not related to the moving assembly line, but actually to a plastic made out of soybeans. And where did he get the idea and the inspiration for working with soybeans? From the man who lived in this cabin here, George Washington Carver. And I say he lived in this cabin because he slept here one day. So in this cabin, you would find wood from all different trees from across the then 48 states of the nation. Now, Carver did a lot of things for American society in the fields of biology, ecology, but maybe the most well-known is his creation of peanut butter, truly an American tradition. It's one thing to have a series of historic buildings in what's called a static mode, where they're not alive. It's another to have the Firestone Farm. This is a series of buildings including a farmhouse and an actual barn that is truly alive. Living history presenters in period clothing patrol this area and not only keep the house in line, but they also take care of all of the animals that are here. And inside the barn, you'll see everything from horses to sheep, chickens, cows, a very angry turkey that just gobbled at us as we were walking in, and other types of animals that were common in farmhouses and farm areas in the 1880s. What makes this one truly unique is that everything is 1880s, from the way that the presenters speak to things that you will see, to the point where there is no modern technology allowed in the entire Firestone Farm property during operating hours. Now it's very exciting that we're going to actually see some baby sheep, some that were actually born hours ago. It just goes to show you that the farm crew that has to be here 365 days a year do everything they can to make sure a farm in the present still resembles the farm in the past. Between 1840 and 1847, a young Illinois lawyer by the name of Abraham Lincoln practiced law in the building right behind me. Lincoln was a traveling lawyer in that he traveled on horseback to various courthouses in various towns. Now inside this one, Abraham Lincoln earned his nickname Honest Abe when on one instance he found out that his client had lied to him, and Lincoln in turn walked out on him and never represented him again. Now this represents a lot of what Henry Ford wanted to do with regard to renovating older buildings, because he wanted to bring the site here. Henry Ford was a major fan of Abraham Lincoln. So he went to Illinois with the proposition of renovating this building, which had fallen into a major state of disrepair. The people of Illinois were, to say the least, not excited about the idea of losing this courthouse and having it moved all the way to Dearborn, Michigan. But Henry Ford encouraged them, saying, more people will see it in my museum than they will here. And Abraham Lincoln's legacy as a lawyer in your town will be preserved. Today, the Henry Ford welcomes 1.7 million guests annually, and they can all see where Abraham Lincoln practiced law. We're here inside the actual house lived in by Wilbur and Orville Wright, inventors of the airplane. But what I want to talk about here is not necessarily their creation of the airplane, but about the family unit overall. Their mother was very interested in getting them involved in mechanics, tinkering, something rare that you would see in women of the time. Their sister Catherine was instrumental in keeping their business going while the brothers were out in North Carolina testing and trying to fly. And their father, a traveling priest, would often bring home books and encourage them to look at all sides of particular situations, encouraging them to read and research. In fact, so much so that it was a pretty common occurrence that Wilbur and Orville would be arguing about a particular topic, and their father would stop them and then tell them to reverse, at which point the brothers would then argue the opposite point that they had just been arguing, to show that they have been well researched and well rehearsed in every major topic and idea. This house represents a lot of what we would call the Victorian era, which is bright colors, lots of decorations, lots of decor.
You're looking into Elizabeth Cohen's millinery shop, and although they're not as popular today as they once were, in 1895 a woman would not be seen on the street without a hat on her head, and it was one of the ways that a woman could express her personality, her sense of style, and certainly her net worth, because the more you had on your hat, the more it said to people, boy, she must have a few dollars. She's got a heck of a hat on her head. So there were lots of reasons to wear a hat, other than the biggest reason, which was to be showing the world that you knew how to be a proper lady. You were not a proper lady if you were on the street without a hat on your head. It was a way to show the world that you knew how to behave. And this, in the same way that a gentleman, of course, would also have a hat on his head, but the minute he came through the doorway, he would take the hat off, because it was improper for a man to have a hat on inside. Because ladies' hats were a little more complicated and they didn't have to follow the same rules, ladies could keep their hats on if they wanted. So you could see a lady inside with a hat on, but always with a hat on outside.
Henry Ford always had a desire for tinkering and for mechanical engineering, and one of the people that really inspired him in that path was Thomas Edison. So when Henry Ford accumulated more wealth and became more famous, Ford wanted to pay Edison back, and the way that he decided to do it, really you could argue, was Greenfield Village itself. Greenfield Village was the inspiration that Henry Ford had to honor Thomas Edison, and the way that he wanted to do it was to bring Thomas Edison's laboratory here to Dearborn, Michigan. Now here on site you have Thomas Edison's library, you have a machine shop, a glass blowing lab, as well as his laboratory right behind me. Inside that laboratory, Edison created some of his most famous inventions, including his electric light bulb, which he did on the second floor. When he brought the entire complex here in 1929 and actually brought the man himself, Thomas Edison, to see it, Ford asked him, "How did we do? How accurate is it?" And Edison said, "It is 99% accurate." Now, for those of you who are students, 99%, that's pretty good. That's a good strong A. You take it, be happy, move on. But for Henry Ford, who invested thousands and thousands of dollars, he wanted to know why it was only 99%. So he asked him, and Edison told him it was a laboratory. We never kept it this clean. Today, Menlo Park sits on 13 train car loads full of New Jersey soil, because Edison said that it would be New Jersey soil that Menlo Park would always sit on. And in bringing that New Jersey soil, they also discovered things that we might not think twice about, like garbage. but it was garbage to Thomas Edison. But to Henry Ford and historians, it teaches us a lot about innovation and how trying can sometimes lead to success. Well, that'll do it for us from here at Greenfield Village. I really appreciate you taking the time to come with us through over 300 years of American history. So for all of us at Greenfield Village, thanks a lot, and we'll see you soon.
We really appreciate everybody who has participated in our virtual program through PAX. I realize that it would be much better if you were here in America, but we really hope that you appreciate everything that we've tried to show you and do for you. PAX really cares about you, and we wish you safe and happy and healthy rest of your year.